Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sunny Go One Piece podcast. On this episode, we're going to actually be diving into a bonus episode where I am going to talk about the latest full on trailer for the live action One Piece series from Netflix that was released during the One Piece Day celebration this past weekend. And so, yeah, this episode is going to be largely unscripted, as was my other trailer reaction, or not reaction, but thoughts. And yeah, this one has considerably a lot more material to talk about, so this one might be a little bit longer. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of split this up into two different sections. One for more just the overall thoughts and what I saw in the trailer, and try and keep it as spoiler free as possible for potential people who haven't seen One Piece at all. I will be making some references, but I'll try and stay away from like story particular beats and stuff like that. And then the latter half, I will go pretty much full on spoilers for not only the series but potentially the anime and the manga as well. So I'll be sure to make that distinction when I do. But yeah, overall, first off, I loved this trailer. To be honest, this trailer got me way more excited for this series than even the first teaser trailer that was dropped. And I really, really liked this trailer. I think there were only a few things that kind of still bothered me. And obviously, I am still very cautious about how much excitement I set myself up, for when this series ultimately gets dropped. And so, yeah, I'm still tempering my expectations, but at the same time, this trailer not only hyped me up even more, but I think it's actually legitimately got me excited for this series. Not that I wasn't excited, but I think that now I'm actually hopeful that this show might actually be good, which is a very weird thought to think about. Yeah, I think first off, the big things that I liked a lot were the humor. First off, I think really works. We got a sense of that from the teaser trailer, but I liked the general direction that they're going with the humor. It's not so much, they're it's not really like the manga or the anime where you have a lot of these like really wacky things and that sort of the absurdist humor. This is definitely a lot more, yeah, Americanized. It's a lot more quippy. It's much more, what you see in the MCU movies or most, superhero movies you see here in the US. And I think it's good. I think it really adds like the two particular scenes that in the trailer that really made me chuckle were the beginning where Luffy is talking to the news crew, which by the way, I love the fact that the news crew looks exactly how I would want it to look. And yeah, he's like asking it to join the crew, and he just flies away, and then Luffy just kind of looks out into the ocean and says mutiny. And I actually really enjoyed that joke. And then obviously at the end of the trailer where Luffy is talking about the wanted poster board and how he says it's terrible, and Kobe's like, I know, like all these pirates, but Luffy's actually talking about the fact that his poster's not there, and it fits Luffy perfectly, but also it is a really specific joke to this live action rendition, and I thought it worked really well. I also got a little chuckle out of that. So yeah, I think on the whole, the humor seems to actually be perfectly calibrated so far in the few bits that I've seen throughout the first two trailers. So yeah, kudos to the writing on that, because that was going to be a difficult sell to really nail the humor and the characterizations of the characters. And so far, from what I'm seeing, it's looking pretty good. I mean, in addition to the fact you get that little bickering moment with Sanji and Zoro about how Zoro, saved Sanji's ass and whatnot, and they're kind of bickering with each other, I thought that worked perfectly as well. The other things, the characters themselves, I think looked really great too, for the most part. Obviously, I'll get into the one particular thing that didn't quite work for me. So, like, we got to see Shanks, Kobe, Mihawk, Garp, Roger. Even in the background, we can see kind of some other more ancillary characters. Like, they're kind of blurry, but you can kind of make out Genzo, you can kind of make out Nojiko and Kabaji and all that stuff. But yeah, the main ones, Shanks, Kobe, Mihawk, Garp, and Roger, they all looked great. I have to say, like, particularly Mihawk and Kobe and Roger looked perfect, especially Mihawk and Roger. Like, Roger, it was going to be a hard one to get because he's such a big presence, and like that smile and the look of him and the way he speaks and how he says the famous lines, like it's really great how they got the right feel for that. Obviously he's not like this one-to-one like really deep voice that the anime Roger has, but I think this actor does a great job of playing Roger. And then Mihawk, oh my god, like the his sword Yoru like looks so good. It's so good, and he's got the cross-shaped little butter knife, like knife on his neck, the one that he plays around with Zoro, and just the costume design. It looks so great, and his eyes are actually hawk eyes. I don't know if they accomplished that through CGI or through contact lenses, but that looked great as well. Kobe looks exactly like how he would in this point in the story. I think, yeah, they all look really great. Shanks, Shanks is all right. He looks good and fine in that one brief shot we got to see of his actual face. We see more of him from behind when he's fighting the Sea King, but I think Shanks looks pretty good for the most part. I will have to see a little bit more of him in action because he kind of doesn't look quite as like. I think because of where we are in the manga and how much we've seen of Shanks and just what kind of presence he holds, it does feel a little different. I don't know. Like it's hard to reconcile the fact that this is the Shanks we'll eventually see later on. I'm trying to be as cagey as possible without trying to give too much away. But yeah, I think overall Shanks looks pretty good, but I'll definitely want to see more of what he does in the brief time he's going to be in this series. Now, the one thing that I think is still left up for debate, so the fishmen were always going to be tough. They were, no matter how you did it, whether you did it through prosthetics, costumes, or through CGI, or a combination of both, it was going to be hard to make them look convincing, intimidating, and sort of fit the world. And I think they did a pretty decent job. I think Arlong is probably the one that I have the most issue with. Like, I'm not saying he's bad, but there's just something off about Arlong. Like there's something a little more to be desired. And I think I know what it is. It's not so much that the makeup looks, doesn't quite look what I would expect it. It's his size. The size is what gets me, I think. And because in order for Arlong to be this intimidating force that he is, he needs to be bigger. And I understand, like, you have limitations. Like, no regular person or actor is going to be that big. But I think I was envisioning something like what they did with Thanos in the MCU, particularly in Infinity War and Endgame. He's this massive dude, and he looks convincingly there. Obviously, this series is not going to have the budget of a Marvel Studios movie, especially Infinity War and Endgame. But, I guess, you can't really make a fully CGI character and have the actor, have that little pole with the little cardboard cutout where the eye line would be. You can't really do that with the motion capture suit. I don't think they had the budget for it. But, yeah, I think that's the only thing I wish I would have had for Arlong. But honestly, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt because he doesn't look terrible, and Kurobi looks great. Yeah, Kurobi, I think, is perfect. We get to see a blurry Chu in the background in one of the shots at the Baratier, where Sanji's kind of doing his flurry of kicks, and then Kurobi stops Sanji's kick on his neck. But we don't actually get to see Hachi in this, which I have to imagine that Hachi will be in this because he is actually the only Arlong pirate that has a significant sort of continuing role. So, I have to think Hachi's going to be in it somehow, but maybe they left him out of this trailer because of the sheer amount of CGI that they would need to do for him. Because obviously they can have the actor be in prosthetics and in a costume like the other three, but you would probably still need to do some CGI work with his tentacles. And so he probably was intentionally left out of this trailer. At least I'm hoping, because also Hachi is my favorite of the four main Arlong pirates. So I think I would hope that he's in there. Plus, like, who's Zoro gonna fight? And so I think, yeah, I hope Hachi is gonna be in there. The other thing I really loved about this trailer is we get to see more of the combat and the devil fruits. So, and again, along with the humor, this was going to be another big, big challenge and hurdle to get past is how you translate the ridiculous devil fruit powers to live action. And I think they actually succeeded. I gotta admit. So first off, we get to see Buggy's Barabara no Mi or Chop Chop fruit in actual like action. And yeah, it looks great. I think it looks really good. The Chop Chop cannon, which to me it looked more like the Chop Chop Festival or Barabara Festival. Like he's got all his parts just flying around everywhere and he throws his body parts at him. That's because like Barabara cannon is just where he like shoots his fists with the knives on his knuckles. Whereas this, he's got like everything flying around. Anyways, that's a nitpick. But anyways, yeah, that looked great. And then also the other Gomu Gomu like abilities that we get to see, like we got to see Gomu Gomu no Whip, where we see that iconic scene at Shell's Town. We got to see Gomu Gomu no Gatling, which looked great. That looked amazingly good, to be honest. Like I didn't think they could. I was wondering how they were gonna pull off like Gatling. And then we got to see Axe, where he where that leg shoots up out of Arlong Park. And then I think we also got to see. No, wait, no, that was it. Those were the three big moves I think we got to see. But yeah, they all looked great. I think the only main one we haven't seen is Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, which I mean, if they can pull off pistol, like Bazooka's not going to be that hard. But yeah, I think it's the abilities look great, to be honest. Like I definitely can like live with this. Obviously it can be better, I think it still looks CGI and pretty digital and fake looking, but I mean it was always going to look fake looking, to be honest. But yeah, I have no real complaints here. Like the combat overall looks really great. Seeing Sanji like fighting Kurobi in the Baratier, as well as that last section with Zoro and Sanji fighting in Arlong Park near the pool. I mean, I just love, that whole section where Zoro is just kind of like slicing a guy, and then a fisherman pops out of the water, and Sanji just comes flying in with a kick. Like that actually looked like it had weight to it, and I mean, it was clearly CGI, but it looked great seeing like the force that Sanji uses to kick people with, and it actually translated pretty well. So yeah, the combat looks great. I mean, I think really for the most part, it looks really good. And I will say, like, they made a smart decision because a lot of these shots, if you notice, they take place in the dark or they're in at night. And I think that was a good decision on their part as sort of a shortcut to making the CGI not quite as glaringly like CGI. You can kind of hide things in darker atmospheres. And I think it also, with the live action, it kind of adds to the atmosphere in making it a little bit more high stakes and a little bit more dreary and dread. Because, yeah, I think one thing you have to kind of lean into is sort of giving it a little bit of a more mature tone to sort of offset the goofiness of the world of One Piece. And, yeah, because if you notice, like, Buggy's tent is super dark. The Baratier is colored very dark. You have the a lot of the action sequences, like with Kuro, it seems like they're fighting Kuro inside the mansion now, and so it's also very gothic and dark in there. So I think it really lends itself well to shooting in some of these more darker locations. Obviously, Arlong Park, that fight seems to still take place during the day, which is great. And so I think, yeah, for the most part, it does a really good job of blending the CGI because they're choosing to shoot a lot of these action sequences in the dark, which I think was a good decision. We'll obviously have to wait to see what the finished product looks like because I'm sure they're still, making some final touches and all that. So yeah, and speaking of changes, obviously we can now finally tell like there is definitely a lot of changes to the narrative and like the sequencing of events. It seems like Arlong is going to have a much larger presence throughout the story. Like you can see him in Buggy's tent somehow. And so he's going to be there pretty much since Orange Town, and then he's clearly there with Kurobi and Chu at the Baratier, and then of course Arlong Park. So it seems like they are setting Arlong up to be this big bad villain, but have him being built up from the earlier portions of the East Blue saga, so that when you do get to that point at the end of the season, he is the big bad. Obviously, with the way the manga and the anime portrayed it, it was also a great effect, and there were small hints to Arlong, in the earlier parts of the anime and the manga. But now he's like overtly like a presence that you do see of him throughout the entire series. And I think it's actually a good change, to be honest. I think that is smart to do to build up to Arlong and really build his villainy up so that he has some sort of a connection with not only Nami but with the entire crew. Because obviously they're setting up Kurobi and Sanji on the Baratier, so when they have the showdown later on, it has that more impact as well. And I hope that's the same with the other crew members in their respective battles. The one thing I don't know, I'm kind of indifferent or I'm kind of ambivalent on is the seeming absence of Don Krieg. Like, because Arlong is now on the Baratier and it seems like he's the one that's causing the trouble on the Baratier, maybe Don Krieg is not quite a big of a role, or maybe even cut entirely, because there was a color spread that was associated with chapter 1088 in the manga, where Oda kind of basically did sort of a color spread to promote the Netflix series, and it's a shot of the original 5 East Blue Straw Hat members surrounded by portraits of some of the major characters, and we see all the villains and a few of the supporting characters, but Don Krieg is suspiciously missing from that, and yet Garp is actually a pretty big face that you see in the bottom left-hand corner. And so, yeah, I wonder what they're going to do with Don Krieg, whether he's going to be a sort of like a small obstacle and not have like a big role, or if he's just cut entirely. I don't think I would mind so much that if the Don Krieg fight was cut entirely, because it is rather long and kind of redundant. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess I would kind of miss Ging, like not having Ging, and most likely if they're cutting that, Johnny and Yosaka are probably gone from the series as well, which again is kind of a loss, but also wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Like, I understand that they need to make cuts. But yeah, I think overall this show looks pretty promising in terms of the overall series and direction that they're taking it. So I am very excited on this, and I like most of the decisions that they've made so far. So yeah, I am pretty hyped, and it's looking pretty damn good. Alrighty, so with sort of my more non-spoilerish thoughts out of the way, I'm gonna go into some of the more nitty-gritty and spoilery things. So if you're not interested in any of that, feel free to tune away. And but yeah, let's get into some of the more specific stuff that was really fun to see. So first off, right off the bat, with the execution of Roger, we not only get a cameo. I don't know if you can call it a cameo because maybe even Garp has a big role in it, but we see Garp on the execution tower along with Roger and the two guys with the spears. And not only is this really cool because Garp has his dark suit from his younger days, like as we see in the manga and the anime, that when he was still younger, he was wearing the black suit with the white robe, and we get to see Garp in this dark suit, which is really cool. Also, another really crazy sighting is the man with the green robe is among the crowd in the execution, and that's gotta be Dragon. Like, we know Dragon was there for the execution, along with many other people like Moria, Smoker, Doflamingo, Crocodile. I mean, I don't know if we will get to see some of those other people there. Obviously, Shanks and Buggy were there as sort of teenagers. But yeah, there were a lot of people at that execution, as we saw in Volume 0. And it's interesting that they decided to tease us with Dragon there. The other thing I really appreciated about this is because we know later on that at this point in time, Roger was dying of his disease or his illness. And they actually did a pretty good job to not only, they still gave him that sort of that spirit of like that really like rise spirit and the that desire to like stoke the flames of the great pirate age, but they made him look pretty sickly at the same time. Like, you can clearly tell that he's not quite 100%, and I like that little detail because yeah, Roger was not well at this time, and so I like that they kind of made him a little sickly looking. And then, of course, yeah, the presence of Garp is interesting here, not only because it seems like he's got a bigger role because of the aforementioned slot in the color spread, but also throughout the trailer, both trailers, you see Garp's ship chasing the Straw Hats. Like, you see his ship chasing the Going Merry. And so it seems like he's going to have a somewhat larger presence throughout the series as opposed to the manga and the anime, where he was relegated to basically a cover story at this point. We also get to see a little bit of Kuro, and well, we only get to really see his claws. So we see there's one shot of the claws coming in behind Mary, who apparently is played by Greg, the super fan, which I didn't realize up until I saw this trailer. That's just insane that a fan got so big with One Piece that not only does he have an actual relationship with Oda, but he is now cast in the series as a significant, like a pretty decently sized role, as in Mary. Like, that's pretty cool. And then we also see the shot of the claws like coming down on Luffy's head, but as he's on the ground. So yeah, we don't quite get to see what Kuro looks like in his face, at least, but we do get to see his claws, which is cool. I'm still curious to see how they're gonna handle his shakshi, like his silent step. But I think it'll be fine based on what we've seen of like Buggy and Luffy. So I don't think super speed is gonna be that hard to translate, considering super speed is a more normal power set than say rubber and chop chop or bara bara. And speaking of other characters that we kind of see that but don't really get to see a whole lot of, is there is a very brief shot of Kabaji in the circus on his unicycle. So hopefully we get to see him take on Zoro as well. I also like the shot of Nami kind of walking through the aftermath of what I think is the buggy dama or the buggy ball that's being shot in Orange Town, because I don't know what other shot that would be where Buggy shoots his big cannonball that wipes out like an entire city block. And I hope this kind of, and I know this isn't gonna happen, but for me, I really want Shushu to be in this series. I don't know how they're gonna do that, but I hope that they do it. Like I know we haven't seen Moji or Richie, um, but I really, really want some acknowledgement of Shushu. So I hope that happens. Another really crazy thing that's included in this trailer is the Cooking George. So the Cooking George is Zeph's old pirate ship, and we see it sort of being capsized by that giant wave during the storm. And judging by this shot, it seems like they are. I don't know if they're gonna go with the anime rendition of Sanji's past, where Zeph gets his foot caught in the wreckage of that. I mean, I guess just because it capsized doesn't mean that, because I mean it does capsize and sink in the manga. Well, it doesn't does it capsize? I can't remember. Actually, yeah, it does capsize. Now that I think about it. Anyways, that's not important. So I guess I could take it in either direction, where Zeph ends up eating his own leg, or whether he has to unfortunately cut his leg off. But yeah, it was really cool to see that. So it seems like we're gonna get to see Sanji's past as well, which obviously I think we needed that. Listen, those the flashbacks are always a huge part of One Piece, so they need to be there. And so I'm glad that we get to see that. And then the other thing is Arlong Park looks amazing. I I thought, I didn't think that it would be possible to make Arlong Park look good, but I mean it's faithfully recreated almost exactly. Obviously, the pool area is a little different. There's a little bit more decoration. The pool isn't just a straight up square pool. It's like an actual like sort of pool with like rocky formations coming out of it, so they can actually do some fighting on the water but not in the water, which I think is a cool change. And also I love, and this is kind of pretty pertinent to where we are in our rewatch, but the if you look in the background, there are like these like carnival stands and like little vendor stands in the background, kind of like a theme park. And we obviously learn from Hachi that Arlong based Arlong Park on Sabori Park. And so I love that little addition of trying to make Arlong Park more like an actual theme park, because Arlong wanted to model it after Sabori Park, because as kids they couldn't go there. And so now that he has supremacy over, a piece of land, he builds his base to look like the theme park aesthetic. And I think this was definitely missing from the original anime and manga, because obviously Oda hadn't really thought about this too far in advance and kind of retroactively added this. So now that there's a chance to go back and do this, he has added all those elements back in, which I think is a great way to connect Sabori with this version of the East Blue Saga. And then, of course, with Arlong Park, we get to see a bevy of pretty spoilerish things. I was kind of amazed that they actually included this, but I guess just to non One Piece viewers, which this series is probably more geared towards anyways, is trying to draw in the general audience. But they showed not only the iconic Luffy help me moment from Nami, as well as the walk up to Arlong Park. And one thing I really loved about a change that they made with this is the walk up. Nami is actually part of them now, and I really like that Nami is now part of the group in this moment, because I mean I loved to death the original, and I think the way it's done in the original is perfect. But I also really like the fact that in this version, Nami gets a little bit more agency. Like, she's there taking control of her destiny by joining Luffy in the fight. Now, obviously, in the anime and the manga, like she stabs her arm a lot, and so I can see why she had to go back to her house to get that treated before she can go back. But I'm sure they're gonna condense things and make it so that first of all, they're gonna need to like tone down the stabbing a little bit, because I'm sure that they're not gonna make it as brutal as it looked in the anime and the manga, because she stabs at things a lot and pretty hard. I hope it is still gonna be a very visceral and painful looking moment, but I don't think they could go as far as the manga or the anime because of the fact that she goes really hard at it. Like if anyone in real life actually stabbed their arm that much, it'd pretty much be like falling off at that point. But I do like that little change that they have Nami now joining them on in that walk to Arlong Park, and I hope she kind of contributes to the fight as well. I don't know who she would fight, whether she would just kind of fight some of the fodder and the foot soldiers in the fishmen, because there's nothing really, no real big baddie for her to fight. But or maybe she helps Usopp like with Chu. We'll see. And yeah, speaking of the five, man, I love their chemistry. I probably should have included this up in the non-spoiler section, but I mean, I mentioned it in the teaser trailer, but their chemistry between the five of them is so good. I really loved how they play off of each other, and we get to see small moments like Zoro and Nami kind of like going back to back to try and protect each other against Buggy's assault, as well as like I think one of my favorite moments, aside from the Zoro and Sanji like bickering moment that I mentioned earlier, was when what looks like the scene where Luffy is getting his bounty. Like I think that moment in the Mary where they're all standing in front of that table and Usopp's just like like that scene is so cool because I think Usopp is like kind of pumping Luffy up, or maybe in this version Usopp is excited about the fact that the back of his head is in Luffy's wanted poster, so maybe he's like pointing that out and just getting like kind of a little joy from that. But yeah, I really like that moment and just the five of them both on and off the screen. Like watching some of their interviews and like their group promotion of the series, they all seem to really like enjoy each other's company and like the chemistry like just works so well. The last thing I kind of wanted to mention is the wanted poster Easter eggs. So at the very end, we see Kobe and Luffy looking at the wanted poster board, and we get a few crazy Easter eggs, like way down the line Easter eggs. To be honest, like so the first one we see well beyond Alvida, and we also do kind of get to see a little bit of Arlong's. Like you see the ONG on one of the posters. But the three big ones I wanted to talk about. So first off, we get to see Cavendish. Cavendish's poster is on the board, which is insane because he doesn't even show up till Dressrosa, like way, way later. This is post time skip, several arcs into the time skip. But I think it's very fitting that Cavendish is on here because obviously Cavendish, he starts his pirate career just a month before Luffy does, and later on he becomes very jealous of the fact that basically Luffy stole his thunder and took all of his notoriety and popularity away from him. But it's a funny sort of reversal in the fact that Luffy is looking at a poster board with Cavendish as one of the wanted pirates, and he's now complaining like, "Where's my wanted poster?" So it's a really fun, cheeky sort of reversal of that. And then we get Foxy, which is a crazy reveal because you see most of his face too. Like it's not even a hidden thing. And yeah, he looks pretty much how you'd expect Foxy to be. And it's interesting that they chose Foxy to be on there, considering he doesn't play a huge. Well, I mean, he plays a somewhat big role. That remains to be seen. But yeah, I mean, he's only there for basically the Long Ring Long Land arc. And most well known for the Davy back fight. And so, yeah, I think that was a funny intro. And also, finally, the third one, we get to see Bellamy, the Hyena no Bellamy. Like, that is crazy, because that's another one that's really tied to Luffy in sort of his journey, because obviously Bellamy is the one that makes fun of Luffy's dreams and says that dreams are stupid. And then, obviously, Luffy then punches his lights out, and then we get we get his whole arc in Dressrosa. That's a way far down the line, and we get sort of his redemption and everything. But I like how these three are the ones to be chosen because they all have a very specific tie to Luffy, and not just being famous pirates, but personally, it seems like there's sort of a connection between all three of them and Luffy. And so I just got a kick out of seeing that, and I gotta think that there will be more sort of Easter eggs to later arcs that will appear throughout the series if this is the type of Easter eggs that they're throwing in just a trailer alone. And it's very interesting because, who knows how long the series will go, or if this will even get a second season, let alone getting to Long Ring Long Land or even Skypiea or Dressrosa. Because, I mean, these characters don't show up for a long time. Like, even at the pace that they're going for this, like, to get to, like, Long Ring Long Land, you're going to be, like, what, year 6? Like, year 7, maybe? And then Skypiea, you're gonna be like year 4, maybe like season 4, if they ever do that. And then Dressrosa, God, that's gonna take like, even at this accelerated Netflix pace, that's still gonna take like 10 years, like to get to Dressrosa. Like it's just, I mean, this is like really far down the line, and I don't know if they're gonna recast those characters by the time they're actually needed. Which I think they will, because most of these actors will probably age out, especially the ones for Dressrosa. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I do mostly think that these are just like fun nods. I don't think these will actually lead to or confirm that the series is going to go beyond this first season. I mean, it'll really depend on its success. And even if it does succeed, I really have a hard time believing that this will go on long enough to get to Dressrosa, let alone Skypiea for that matter. I think Skypiea may be possible if this show's a runaway hit, but even then, it's pretty hard. Like I can easily see this series wrapping up basically with the with Arabasta if it even does get renewed for multiple seasons. But yeah, like I said, overall, I loved this trailer, and it has definitely gotten me very excited for this series on August 31st. I've already like taken the next day off so that I could just literally watch this for the entire day, just straight binge it, which is something I don't normally do. I don't really binge things. I just kind of watch them very periodically. I don't really ever sit for more than like a few hours watching a TV show. I've never actually binged something like straight through like that. Probably not since like my days in college when I binged through the first 2 seasons of The Office in preparation for season 3. But yeah, I think this will definitely be something I'm definitely going to be binging. Also because I want to see it in both English and Japanese, because it was announced that the Japanese dub will be dubbed by the original actors from the anime series. So Mayumi Tanaka, Kazuya Nakai, Akemi Okumura, Kappei Yamaguchi, and Hiroki Hirota, like they're all reprising their roles. So I kind of want to watch it in Japanese just to hear their voices in this rendition as well. So it'll be really fun when this series comes out. I think regardless, whether this becomes like a smash hit or anything, you can definitely tell that both Oda, or not both, but everyone involved, like Oda, the showrunners, the actors, the production and set designers, costume designers, like everybody involved seems to actually be really passionate about making this show as successful as possible. And, if this show isn't a success, it's not for lack of trying. And I can appreciate that. And so no matter what happens, I think everyone involved should be really proud of what they do, because it seems like this was actually a labor of love more so than a labor of just cash grab. And obviously Netflix is definitely counting on like a lot of cash from this, hopefully, but I think that at least for the people involved, it seems like they actually want to honor Oda Eiichiro's like work and legacy, and obviously he himself is pretty invested in this, it sounds like, as well. So yeah, I will definitely be watching this on day one very excitedly. So I hope you all too as well. But yeah, and I will bring this episode to a close. But if you did enjoy this, send me a like or comment. And if you want to join me on this journey of rewatching One Piece, consider subscribing. Check out my Instagram and Twitter accounts at SunnyGo Podcast for updates of new episodes. And as always, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to listen to my podcast. Stay safe out there, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Bye.